All right. This is the 15th episode of the Running My Mouth podcast. I am your sun-kissed host, Arin, and allow me to run my mouth a little bit. The lighting, I'm not gonna lie, the lighting is definitely a little bit off because the sun is like setting right now and it's just blasting light in here. So it's probably gonna change by the end of this episode, but it's the daytime when I'm recording this, when usually I record these like really after the sun has set. So the sun is currently in the process of setting, and soon, hopefully, it will be set because it is kind of in my eyes right now. But yeah, I am back on. Well, I have been back for quite some time now, but I am back in the contiguous 48. Is that what they call it? The lower 48? The other 48 of the United States, because my little holiday that I had taken was, that I had mentioned in the last episode, was in Hawaii. I went to Hawaii for Thanksgiving, and let me tell you, it was kind of a strange time. Um, I mean, you've read the title, it was definitely strange. I do want to say that I still feel like part of me did have a good time, but I mean, I guess, I have been kind of going back and forth on, how to explain this, or even if I should explain this. Like, should I keep this offline? Like, is it really anybody's business? Like, is there really anything to be gained from sharing any of this? And honestly, if I'm going to talk about Thanksgiving, then I kind of have to talk about it. So that's what we're going to talk about. I promise this isn't going to be like depressing the whole time, but for now it is. So it's really funny because like a few months ago, I can't remember how long ago I made that video. Maybe was it in September or August? It was earlier this year, I guess, kind of towards the middle. My what is the name of that video? The last 6 months. That was an interesting choice to make. That, honestly, not sure why I did. Probably just to kind of, I don't know, convince myself that I was happy when in reality I kind of wasn't. And honestly, it only really got like worse from there. So I have been having like a really weird, I can only really describe it as weird, like past, I don't know, month and a half. Let's see. Basically, most of September, basically all of September, all of October, and all of November. The past 3 months for me have been weird. It's been a weird time. My mood has been at an all-time low. And I don't know if that's like obvious at all in the videos that I've made in that time, which I haven't really made that many videos in that time. So, I mean, there you go. Or the podcast episodes that I've put out in that time. But I have kind of been down in the dumps. My mood's been in the dumper for honestly since my birthday, for being honest, September 2nd. It has been a not great time for me because it feels like, I don't know, it's just like a culmination of things that has just been making things like really hard for me, where I have, this stuff that I'm about to say, it's not like life ending, life ruining, like really like dramatic stuff. Like, I have had to like take a step back and realize that, it could be worse. It could be so much worse for me. And thankfully it isn't. And I really do have to remind myself that, because it does kind of bring me up a little bit, but also I kind of hate that kind of self-talk, because, I've always been, anytime I would complain about something, especially to my parents, they'd be like, you're not the only one going through it. Somebody else has it worse. And it's like, I mean, yeah, I'm not the only one going through it. And yeah, there are definitely people who have it worse, but that doesn't change the fact that I still feel kind of terrible about, what I've been going through. So, anyways, yeah, I guess I should just stop beating around the bush. Um, so real, it's just Aaron heads will remember that this is not my first podcast endeavor. This is my second, actually. I had a previous one, with someone, uh, uh, no, with Joseph. I had another podcast with Joseph called the Not Just Aaron podcast. It was audio only. By the way, banger name. I want to say that banger name. The entire podcast is still on YouTube and on Spotify and all the other platforms that we put it on, which I think was just Apple Podcasts and like Google Play. So it's still out places. You can still listen to it. I haven't listened to it since I put the last podcast episode out, not for any reason, just because since I was the one editing them, there was like no reason for me to like go back and watch them, or I guess listen to them, because I do watch my old YouTube videos, but I didn't really listen to my old podcast episodes, mainly because they were so long. Like, some of them got up to like 2 hours long, and that's just like a lot of time. So that's why, that is why I haven't gone to like re-listen to them or anything. There's just been no reason for me to do so. But you may remember that our last episode of that podcast, before even that last episode, we had a once a week schedule, me and my co-host Joseph, and that lasted for a little bit. He was going through some personal things that I won't really mention because it's really not relevant at all. So that kind of broke up the flow of it a little bit, but for the most part, we were pretty consistent. I was kind of hesitant to start a podcast, like, I guess back, I don't know, before I had that one, because number one, I just didn't feel like I would be good at the whole podcasting on my own, which honestly, now that I've been doing this one, I think I could definitely do this one on my own. I like doing it on my own. Would I like to have a co-host? Yes, it does help, but as far as how this one is going, I like how it's going. I like how it flows, and I like doing it. So, but I was kind of hesitant to start it, but being that, me and Joseph were good friends at the time, he was like, yeah, it would be pretty cool to start a podcast. And so, I mean, I know, goodness, I'm really phlegmy right now. I don't know why. I know this feels like a whole lot of setup to explain why I didn't have a good time in Hawaii, but just bear with me, please, because it's all relevant. But, yeah, we had decided to start a podcast at first. It was just literally my little Surface tablet with like Audacity on it and one singular like blue snowball microphone, a USB microphone that was terrible quality up until what was it? It wasn't this last year, it was the year before last. Tax season, I got a nice little chunk of change from the Internal Revenue Service, and I decided to use a portion of that to buy these microphones and the recorder that I have, and yeah, that was basically it. And so we kind of upgraded from there, and over time I could kind of tell that, maybe, and I haven't watched this video in like a really long time, so I can't even really remember what I said in it, but I'm pretty sure in the video that I made on my main channel where I talked about the podcast ending, I had said that, Joseph just kind of didn't want to do it anymore, which, by the way, is still the truth. There is truth in that statement. He didn't want to do it anymore. But, over time, it became less frequent. Eventually, we switched to an every other week format, which I have kept for this podcast because I just think it works. I really don't think I could do every week. I don't even know how I was doing every week back then. That was kind of a lot, but we switched to every other week until eventually more and more gaps were in between our episodes. And eventually he just told me that he didn't want to do the podcast anymore, which, I mean, the writing was on the wall. Like, I could tell that he didn't really enjoy doing it, even though I still enjoyed doing it. And so I didn't really have any issue with that. But then after that, our friendship just kind of started to falter. Me and Joseph were like really good friends. I would go so far as to say that he was my best friend at the time. We had met in college. I mean, we have a whole episode. The first episode of the Not Just Aaron podcast is about our friendship. So I'm not really going to go into it very much, but we were very good friends, and eventually for, I guess reasons that I will expand upon at some point, that kind of started falling apart, but I didn't really feel it falling apart. I thought, he's got all this other stuff going on in his personal life, which again, I'm not going to get into because it's not relevant. So I thought, okay, maybe he just needs space and time to like deal with that. Whether or not that was the case, I probably will never know because the reasons that he gave did not include that at all. So I was kind of blindsided by it. So I should say, well, okay, just to make it obvious, me and Joseph are no longer friends. We haven't been friends, officially since like the week of my birthday, unofficially since probably like June. So like about 6 months by now. So yeah, we aren't friends anymore, which is kind of sad. And I don't personally think that it was the podcast like itself that kind of nuclear bombed our friendship. I think it was a lot of other stuff, and the podcast just like certainly did not help with that. But truthfully, he told me why he no longer wanted to be friends with me. I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. So March is like, I don't know, after March, or maybe it was April. I can't remember exactly when the episode came out, but in March, when me and Joseph and his girlfriend Melissa went to Little Rock, Arkansas to see August Burns Red's, apostrophe S, 20th anniversary show, which I had begged him to come with me. I begged him to come with me to like several shows because, as I have made abundantly clear on this podcast, music is something that is very important to me, and it is something that, at the time I am so overexposed right now. I'm so sorry, by the way. It's 3:00. That's something that I wanted to share with the person who was at the time my best friend. So I was like, hey, come to these shows with me. He kept saying no until finally the one in Little Rock came, and I will now say begrudgingly agreed. And so we ended up going, and I can't really remember if this like was reflected in the episode because again, I haven't listened to it since it came out in March, but it really seemed like he just didn't want to go at all. Like just didn't to the point where I'm not even sure why he agreed to go in the first place. I could tell while we were there that he just kind of didn't want it. It felt like, strangely enough, Melissa was more excited to be there than he was, even though I didn't even really directly like invite him. And the sun is sunning right now. Good Lord. Okay. It looks like I'm coming to you straight from heaven right now. It's so bright. Oh my God. Okay. Cloud, do your thing. Anyways, yeah, so I could tell that something was a little bit off. And then there was a point during our last episode, which he cites as being the final straw for him, where, okay, I don't really do a whole lot of like editing in these podcasts, aside from, cutting stuff out that doesn't need to be in there occasionally and making the audio sound better. But I'm going to go back and listen to this old episodes of my old podcast, and insert, what he cites as being his exact final straw moment on the podcast that he told me. I don't know if that's necessarily true because I feel like a lot of metalcore really transcends borders because a lot of the bigger bands, they're like in the UK. They metalcore? I don't know if I would call Bleed From Within metalcore, but using that as a general term.
Well, why don't you say metal?
Because that's not super accurate either. Because metal, if you think metal, you think like Metallica, Iron Maiden, and they were not that. So it's very different.
Can't metal change over the years? It's metal today than it was metal yesteryear.
I don't know why you're trying to call me out on subgenres. Well, it's not working. I know what you're trying to do.
No, I'm trying. It's because, what am I trying to do?
I don't know. You're just being weird about subgenres.
Well, I think I'm being weird because leading up to the concert, or like in the times that we've talked about metalcore, I don't know. You struck me as like being almost like pretentious about it. You're like, it's not metal, it's metalcore.
Because there is a difference.
Get it right.
Because metalcore incorporates elements of hardcore. and
Uh-huh.
metal is just metal.
Yeah,
It blends metal and
and
hardcore.
I feel like the only band that like incorporated element, because I did look this up
Uh-huh.
recently. The only band up there that did incorporate elements of hardcore was Devil Wears Prada. I did not
Mhm.
think Bleed From Within or August Burns Red did.
Interesting.
So I don't think by that definition you could say they are metalcore.
Well, they are generally considered to be metalcore bands.
Bleed From Within?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And also August Burns Red, they're like a classic metalcore band.
Uh-huh.
They're up there with like Avenged Sevenfold, Killswitch Engage. Like if you ask a metalcore fan what's like a quintessential metalcore band, I don't think August Burns Red would be at the very top because I mean compared to the two that I just said, they've been around since like the mid to late 90s. And August Burns Red, this is their 20th anniversary, so they've been around since like 2003. So that might not be like at their tippy tip top list, but it's definitely in there.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, what was I even talking about? And at first I was like, that doesn't really make sense because, you know, when I corrected him on that, I didn't even really correct him, just kind of called him out and moved on. I was like, okay. I was over it by the time I had finished editing the podcast because, like, when that happened, when we were recording it, I was already kind of annoyed that he was doing it. And then I started editing it again, or editing it for the first time, not again. And I was annoyed that he had done it, but I felt like I didn't really say why I was annoyed while, you know, we were doing the podcast. So I sent him a text being like, hey, I don't like that you're trying to correct me on something. That feels weird. Like, why would you do that? You shouldn't do that anymore. I'm going to refrain from reading our direct correspondences because, I mean, I don't know if he still sees the stuff that I make, but in the off chance that he does, you know, I don't think that would be the best option to do that, so I won't. But essentially I was like, hey, this is like the second time you've done this, like it's kind of weird, please stop. And I finished editing the episode and I was done with it. I was like so over it. I was like, okay, I don't really care about this anymore. Bro, okay, hold on. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna fix the exposure. Okay, now I'm not completely blown out. I might get a little bit darker as the sun goes down, but anyways. As I was saying, I was kind of done with it. I didn't think it was that big of a deal when that had happened. Like, I was momentarily annoyed, and then I was like, okay, whatever, and then I moved on, you know? But in this big, long paragraph that he sent me, when I told him, like, hey, I can tell things have kind of been different between us. It's time to talk. My intention with sending that was to, like, actually either, you know, a phone call would have been fine, or I would have preferred a face-to-face. And I was intending on setting something like that up. And I'd even written, like, this whole, I don't know, like, I don't think it was 6. It was about 4. It was 4 pages single space, but it was, like, double spaced when I had written it. 4 pages of, like, things that I just wanted to say to him to be like, hey, this stuff is getting a little weird, but I feel like we can work together and move forward through this as friends because, as I put it, life is too short to be hung up on, like, dumb stuff, you know? Because I had felt that all the things that we had argued about as we were friends, which wasn't that much, was overwhelmingly dumb. Like, it was stupid. It was meaningless. And, like, that's not worth blowing up a friendship over, you know, in my eyes. And I thought, okay, like if we hash this out, if we address this, then I feel like we could be fine and we could start hanging out again. I didn't care about the podcast. I was like, when he had, I think we talked on the phone, when he had finally told me that he didn't really want to do the podcast anymore, I wasn't even really that mad. Again, I had seen the writing on the wall. I was very accepting of it. I was like, okay, we don't have to do it anymore. If you don't want to do it anymore, that's fine. I did tell him I was a little bit disappointed, but again, that I had seen it coming. And so I wasn't all that upset about it. I had moved on with the quickness, essentially. And so, you know, I'd written out this whole thing that I wanted to say to him. I want to say like early August because it was at that point that I realized like, okay, it's been a little while since I've seen him or even talked to him. Like, I don't even know how he's doing, like how things are with him. So like maybe we should meet up and talk about it. Not at either of our, apartments or anything, just like at a neutral place, just to talk, hash things out. Because, I had felt that we were, pretty close, that we could have done that. And that's what I wanted to do. So instead of, in the text that I had sent him, because I think I had tried calling him a few times, but he didn't pick up. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I should text him. In the text that I had sent him, I didn't really, allude to wanting to meet up. Maybe I should have. I don't think that would have helped anything, actually, now that I think about it. So even if I did, that wouldn't have mattered. But essentially what ended up happening is that Joseph ended our friendship. And the reasons that he cited for not wanting to be friends with me anymore was that, number one, hanging out with me stressed him out. And that is a verbatim quote, that hanging out with me stressed him out. How he explained it was that, we got into all of these arguments and he was so afraid of like upsetting me again, which doesn't even really make sense to me, because in our arguments, which weren't even really arguments, I moved on pretty quickly. I stopped caring about them again with the quickness. Like, I didn't really care like that. But I guess he thought I did, or maybe he did himself. So there you go. And then there was another thing that came up that has stuck with me since I have read those words. But real OG, this, I shouldn't be joking, but at the same time, I don't care. Real OGs will remember that I made a video in I think it was in 2022, like last year, where I put a bunch of conservatives in a drag race simulator. It was honestly one of my favorite videos and one of my more popular videos. Not my most popular, but it got some traction, and I was very happy about that. And in the description of the video, I put, what did I put? As a reminder, I'm trying to remember like verbatim. As a reminder, these people and their views suck, and making fun of them was morally correct, with a heart emoji. And I mean, if you go back to that video and look, it's still in the description. I'm not going to take it out because, number one, it was a joke. And number two, I don't care. I don't care what those people have to say. Like, they are weirdo conservatives. Like, why should I care? Like, you're really, okay, just move on. But, he said that I went too far in writing that in the description. And he said that by making that video and by putting that in the description, that let me see. I gotta word this correctly. Because again, I you know what, whatever. I'm gonna go to the text because I gotta remember this, like, so I don't, mess anything up. And because, I also don't delete anything. Like, on my phone, there's so much stuff there that has been there for years. Like, I still have dead people's contacts in my phone. Anyways, what did it say? So yeah, basically, he said that by making that video, I was signaling that I secretly didn't like him, which is honestly really funny, because if I didn't like him, I wouldn't be friends with him, Like, I don't keep people around me that I don't like. Like, I'm far too grown to be doing that, to be keeping people around that I don't like. That doesn't make sense. And he also said that the association, I guess, made him think that I disliked him, his friends, and his family. Now, to all the people either watching this or listening to this, I need you to understand something right now. The people that I put in those videos were, I'm going to say it, they're extremists, okay? These are people like Candace Owens. I put Classically Abby in there. I think Ben Shapiro was either in that one or the second one that I made. He was in one of them. I put the Girl Defiant Sisters in there. I put friggin' Dennis Prager in there, okay? I put people who are more or less on the extreme side of the right wing. So I'm still overexposed. This sun is doing things. So essentially, I'm not sure what he meant by that. I'm genuinely not sure what he meant by that, and I cannot get clarification on that because I mean he decided to stop talking to me. So I am only left with things that I can assume. So assumptions are not great things to make. But when the channel of communication has been cut off, so that neither of us can be understood in the way that we need to be, I can only draw the conclusion that because I made fun of those people and because he thinks that me making fun of those people means that I don't like him, his friends, or his family, then that can only mean that him, his friends, and his family are like right wing people. Which, number one, I don't even think that's true because I knew him. Maybe I didn't know him that well, but obviously I knew him. Like, a lot of his friends were my friends, and I had met and got to know his family. And aside from like one of them, they're all overwhelmingly normal people. So I can't even see how that distinction or that comparison can really be made. That because I am making fun of right wing weirdos, that means I don't like his family. Another thing I should point out that might make this honestly stupid connection make sense is that one day before recording the podcast, I was at Joseph's apartment because that's where we always did them. And I can't remember. Okay, I was sitting at the kitchen table where we recorded it at. And I remember he was laying on the couch that was like across the room, but not like far away. And we were sitting down. Well, I was sitting down getting ready to do the episode, but I could tell even at that point, for whatever reason, I can't even remember how many episodes in we were. So I can't even really say like why this was, but doing the podcast for him for some reason just was a Herculean task. It was the hardest thing, like just so difficult for him. I don't know why. I'm trying to be diplomatic here, but at the same time, I still need to speak my piece because I don't know why it would have realistically it would have been so hard for him to do the podcast because if you think about it, number one, I had all the equipment. Number two, well, okay, this is still part of number one. I'd spent like $500, close to over $500. I think the exact total was like $505 to buy the equipment that we had to do the podcast. These microphones, our mic stands, the recorders. What else? I mean, I think that was mostly it. It's not really expensive stuff, but altogether, it added up to like $500. And so I was the one providing all the equipment. I always went to him. I always went to where he was, which made sense at first because he didn't have a car for like a while. And when we started doing the podcast, he didn't have a car. So I was the one with the car. Okay, it makes sense for me to go there. I was the one, editing the podcast. I was the one handling, putting it up on the platforms, putting it on, YouTube and Spotify and all the other platforms. And a lot of the times I was the one bringing the topics to the table to discuss things, which he cited as something that he didn't like because, towards, or maybe not towards the end, I don't know, I can't remember. But in his very long text that he sent me to detail why he did not want to be friends with me anymore, he didn't like that I guess, kind of commandeered the podcast in that we always only talked about what I wanted to talk about, which every time we sat down to do the podcast, I would ask him, okay, Joseph, what do you want to talk about this week? And a lot of the times he would not have an answer for me. So I'm like, okay, obviously I like doing the podcast. So it was very exciting for me. So I had a lot of things to talk about. And so, I would bring these things to the table and that's what we would talk about on the podcast because I had already had things prepared and he did not. So, that's why it seemed like I was, I guess, commandeering the podcast and doing only what I wanted to do. I'm doing air quotes, by the way, for anyone who is only listening to the podcast. Which, if you're only listening, you're only getting half the story. Which, honestly, you probably would be better off listening because this is so overexposed right now. The sun is just destroying me. But anyways, only doing things that I wanted to do. because literally he didn't really bring anything to the table. So it's like, okay, well, here are some things that I want to talk about. We can both talk about them together, since a lot of the times we both had knowledge of these topics. So, I that didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But all of that to say is that, our friendship ended up dissolving literally the week of my birthday. I guess you could say that it had already been dissolved by then, but the week of my birthday is really when it set in that, okay, I was the one that was going to try to salvage this. I wanted to fix it. Again, like, my thought was that life is too short to be hung up on dumb arguments that don't even matter. So it's like, why would I let this friendship die over that? You know? So I was willing to fix it, but he did not want to fix it. He would have rather not be stressed out, I guess, all the time by hanging out with me, and decided to be like, okay, we're not friends anymore. So I was like, all right, well, I guess we're not friends anymore. And normally that happening on its own would have been kind of fine, because, one of my earliest videos on my main channel, on It's Just Arin, is a video where I detail the disillusion of another friendship that I had that ended in a way stupider fashion. um, and like, me and that person had been friends for like a while, even going back into like elementary school, and it kind of dissolved overnight. And I took it very hard at the time, but given that I was, starting college and in a new environment and around new people, and, essentially the world was my oyster, I was able to kind of take it, and I was able to move on from it. So much so that thinking back to that situation kind of makes me laugh now, because it was just so dumb. Like, it's such a dumb, like, sophomoric thing. And I'm talking about the situation from freaking, when was that? 2018? A long time ago, basically. And so, yeah, I think that was 2018. It was a while ago. Anyway, for some reason, I just, if I may take a moment to be a bit vulnerable on the pod, I haven't. Well, let me actually hold on. Let me make one thing like abundantly clear. I kind of don't care about Joseph anymore. Like, it's behind me now. Like, I haven't seen him since like June. I haven't talked to him since, I mean, actually, talked to him in a meaningful way probably since June. Like, I'm kind of past the whole Joseph aspect of this, and I honestly think it's kind of ridiculous. And to be completely honest, I'm probably a little bit better off not being friends with him, because, I mean, there'll be times where, I don't know how I can really put this, but I guess there'll be times where I felt like I was going in like a positive direction and he was just kind of staying still. Cause like, one kind of, I guess, good example of this that I can think of, where he was, kind of low key mean to me for like no reason, um, was that my senior year of college, I had written this short film, and that was supposed to be my senior project. But I graduated college in 2020, and golly gee willikers, what else was going on during that time? COVID made things very hard for me to complete my senior film, and I ended up not doing it, which, upset me greatly at the time. And I thought, since I am back here and I am, mostly kind of stable, I thought, okay, I think now is time. It's time to give it the old college try and make my short film again. And I told Joseph about this and how I was, going to try to, I don't know, meet up with some filmmakers around here to get this short film that I had made, because I mean, it was going to be really easy to make anyways. I just kind of, needed the people resources to do it. And he had said, why would you do that? Like, I thought, or you know what, let me not even, I don't want to mince my words or like misspeak or anything like that, but prior to me telling him this, I had written like this really silly like short film about a bug getting into my apartment, and me and him were going, well, we never really made any like concrete plans, but I toyed with the idea of me and him making this silly little short film. I called it Insectomania, where I'm basically like fighting this bug around my apartment. And this would have been at my last apartment. Because I written it because like there was like I think it was like a stink bug or something like that that had gotten into my apartment, and like it was on the ceiling, and I was having a really hard time for some reason getting it out or like killing it or something like that. And I don't really like bugs, so it was like a big deal to me. So I thought, okay, let me take this traumatic experience and put it to film. So we had kind of toyed around with that idea a little bit. I showed him the script, and we were not really making any serious plans to make it, but I had wanted to make it for like a little while. And so I had told him that I had wanted to make my senior short film, and he was like, I can't remember exactly what he said. I genuinely can't remember what he said. I remember the general concept of it, but I can't remember exactly what he said. For some, I don't know what happened, but the search feature in like Google Messages, I used to be able to actually like search through messages, but now it's just not doing that for some reason. But anyways, he had essentially told me that I was being far too ambitious with, my senior film, and that I didn't know what I was doing, and that I should stick to something simpler like the Bug movie, which I found to be honestly insulting that he would tell me, a person who had gone through the exact same film program as him, that I didn't know what I was doing. Like, okay, I had never went through that kind of undertaking on my own before, but like also keep in mind at the time I was working as a videographer. So like on a material level, I knew what I was doing because I was doing it at work. And I told him as much, and he did kind of back down from that. But I found that to be straight strangely kind of like, I want to say out of character, but honestly looking back it probably was in character. Strangely mean from him. So that was weird. Another thing that I kind of didn't like, I guess since I'm just airing all my grievances now, it is December. It's almost, I don't even, when is who cares? um Another thing that he did that I didn't particularly like, that I think was kind of that affected me the most, not the movie thing, the thing that I'm going to talk about now, but that he never really cared about what I cared about, which people just on like a fundamental level just have different interests from one another, which is like fine. But I'm the type of person where if I learn that someone is super passionate about something, I want to know about it, because 9 times out of 10 I'm not going to know anything about it, and I like learning new things, so I want to hear all about it. And given that this is my hypothetical friend, it would make me really happy to have them share with me something that means a lot to them. And once again, something that we have established on this podcast many a times is that music means a lot to me. And so, in various ways, through having him listen to songs, or just talking about it on the podcast or off the podcast, or trying to get him to come to concerts with me, he just didn't care that I cared about music at all. And he would tell me to my face that he didn't care, like straight up the words, I don't care, to try to shut down the conversation. He would just tune out completely anytime I would talk about music. Like, he just apparently did not care about how that made me feel. And yet I was the one who stressed him out. But I've been talking about this for far too long, so I think it's time to move on. All that to say is that the breakdown of my friendship with Joseph genuinely took a toll on me. Like, it made me probably the lowest I've ever been. And it's not even really because we weren't friends anymore. Like, again, I can say now that I am like fully past that, past like not being friends with him. Like, I don't care anymore. To be quite honest, I don't know, if he were to text me out of the blue, if I would have kind things to say, and if I would welcome him back with open arms, especially because of the mental toll that I took because of it. Um, but something that I hadn't really noticed until my birthday, which is not really just my birthday, but like the whole week before my birthday, because it fell on a Saturday. I hadn't really noticed that since June, I had been spending all of my time outside of work alone, literally alone, by myself, in here, in this apartment, not seeing or talking to another soul for months at that point. And I want, I guess at that time, before my birthday, before everything came crumbling down, I was kind of under the assumption that, okay, we're just on like a little teeny weeny little break here, but eventually, we're going to reconcile things and things are going to be great. But then I realized there's no coming back. There is no coming back from it. And so I was like, okay, it's like over. It's like actually over. And so I am, very unfortunately, the kind of person who only has like one or two close friends at a time. This is how I've always been. This is probably how I'll always be, but it's just an unfortunate personality trait of mine that I only have one or two close friends that I talk to on a regular basis at a time. And it just so happened that he was that person for me at that time. And then after that, I had no one. So I had been spending, again, 99% of my time outside of work by myself. And this was completely unprecedented for me because, I would say probably my second worst. I think this time in my life that I'm going through right now has definitely taken the number one spot for me. But in my now number two spot for worst time in my life, when I was unemployed after graduating, I wasn't alone. I was living at home. My mom was there. My brother would visit occasionally. And I had, Rio was there. I was taking care of him during that time because he was getting up in age. So it's like, I was very, very, very down in the dumps during that time, like genuinely just having the worst of times, but I wasn't alone, I wasn't by myself. So it was bearable. But now I am. And so it's like, oh, okay. I'm just like here. It's just me and the oxygen, And that took a toll on me in a way that I've never felt before. And it's kind of weird that I'm able to talk about this now without like getting emotional, because before, anytime I would think about it, it would be immediate tears. But now I don't know why I feel weirdly removed from it, but now, like, I don't know. I was and have been spending a lot of my time alone. And, if you know anything about human psychology, I guess, that's not good for you, actually. Who knew? Spending most of your time alone is like detrimental to your mental health. Oh my, who could have guessed that? Oh my goodness. Even when me and Joseph were friends, we weren't hanging out all that much. It would maybe be like once a week, maybe twice a week that we would see each other. But that was like enough for me. That was enough to like sustain my social need for however long. But now it's like again, it's just me and the oxygen. And I'm gonna pause again because now the sun is set and now I have to adjust the freaking the exposure. Give me a second. Yeah, so as I was saying, spending most of your time alone is actually not good for you. And even though, I would guess, I don't really know for sure which one that I am, but if I had to guess, I would say that I am more of an introvert. I thought I was okay with not seeing people on a regular basis. I don't know why. I guess it didn't really occur to me what was going on because it was all happening in slow motion. But, as time went on, just like my overall mood was just getting worse. I was getting tired all the time, just like sleepy or just, I don't know, bodily tired all the time, kind of crying more often, just feeling loneliness is the only way that I can describe it. And I guess last month is when this all came to a head because towards the beginning of the month, I had two separate people say this to me. One was my therapist and one was my mom. Both of them have asked me, you know, have I considered getting on antidepressants? And the answer is no, by the way. I should say the answer is no, because first of all, we don't even know if I'm like actually like real deal depressed or if I'm just like a little sad. Um, that, so that was low key kind of disrespectful, I'm not gonna lie. To myself, I guess, but still, like, okay, that was a bit much. But I just want to put it out there. I don't think I'm depressed. And honestly, I don't think getting on antidepressants is really going to help me in any tangible way. I know it's going to help me in a tangible way, and it's spending time with people. But given that I am someone who does not make friends very easily, that's going to take some time. And I'm just going to kind of have to figure it out on my own, just like how to navigate that. And I don't think SSRIs or I don't know, what other kind of antidepressants there are is gonna automatically make me a more social person. I mean, that might regulate my mood a little bit more, but the material fact will still remain that I am spending most of my time alone. And I just gotta fix that. Really. That's all that it is. I just gotta fix that. And I have been brainstorming ways to do that. And it's gonna happen eventually at some point. Um, but I just kind of have to get through it. That's the only thing that I can say. And again, I am like very surprised that I am managing to like go through all this without like shedding tears, but I am somehow. But all of this relates back to Thanksgiving because all of this was coming to a head, I would say, around the Thanksgiving holiday. And so I thought, all right, this going to Hawaii is going to be the thing that's going to fix my brain. I'm going to go there and it's going to be so nice and so beautiful and just so serendipitous. I don't think that's the word. It's going to be great, essentially. And I'm just going to snap out of whatever's going on upstairs because at that point, by the time, we had gotten ready to go on our trip, I had legitimately been feeling like some weird brain stuff going on. Like I was legitimately like mood down in the dumper, like tiredness, I don't know, just general sadness, just like irritability as well. I became so easily irritable in that time frame. It was weird how just almost instantly agitated I could become. And I could tell like my memory as well. I was starting to forget things so easily. Like one of my coworkers would tell me something and then I would get back to my desk and I would like forget it. It was really weird. Um and so, you know, by the time our trip had come, I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this trip and I'm gonna get over everything. I'm gonna get back to the old Aaron, whatever that was. I mean, who even knows what the old Aaron was? I mean, certainly not this, but honestly, I don't even know what the old Aaron was. I can't even tell you. If there even was an old Aaron, I don't know. But that didn't really end up happening on this trip. I was still, for some reason, like I could not become happy for the life of me. Like, I was literally going to Hawaii. Like, yeah, it is a state in the United States, but it's basically the closest you can get to going to a foreign country without leaving the country, technically. You know? I was in this like nice island with just loads of natural beauty and yet still I was just so sad. And for what reason? I don't know. I can't even I can't even say that this was going to be something that was going to elevate my mood because I will say this, anytime my entire immediate family is together, I already know my happiness has like an upper limit. Like, I, it's just being around them, being around all four of them at once is just not great for me for reasons I don't even really know myself. And to top it all off, obviously I talk to my mom probably the most out of everyone in my family. And without me even telling her what my therapist had asked me, she on her own was like, "Hey, maybe you should try getting on chemical antidepressants." So already she knew that something was kind of up. And now that I'm, in Hawaii in person with the rest of my immediate family, I they could start to tell as well. And I got two separate talking tos, not even talking tos, talking ats. I got talked at by my dad and my brother about, just typical people not understanding things like, why are you choosing to feel like this? Like, who would make, why would you choose to be so sad? As if that was something that I would choose, which I haven't really been able to articulate it to them because they are just the type of people where they will literally talk at you and give you no room to speak for yourself. So already things were kind of like difficult there. But the way that I felt was not a choice. Like, it would be so dumb for me to choose to be sad in Hawaii, you know? Like, who would choose to be sad in Hawaii? Nobody would make a an active, like, conscious choice to do that. It's one of the most beautiful places on this planet. Probably the best United States state out of all the 50 little crusty little states, you know? Like, and it was going to be my first time there. So I was experiencing all of this for the first time, which is something that I love doing, experiencing things for the first time. I don't know why. I don't think that's unique or different, but I do love having a good first time experience. And so one thing that kind of stuck out to me that I think honestly made me just feel worse was that all of them were under the assumption that I was doing that on purpose, that I was being sad on purpose, that I was like crying on purpose, when in reality, I was not fully in control of my emotions. Like, as much as people like to think that they are, I don't know, in control of themselves, there is part of you that's kind of not. There's the unconscious self that is working behind the scenes to like do whatever it does. And my unconscious self was deeply unhappy in Hawaii, and that's what made it so genuinely bizarre the time that I was there. And yeah. So I guess to give a little TLDR, I stopped being friends with someone on my birthday, which by the way, it was all of this was happening the week of my birthday. I take my birthday very seriously, okay? Like the rest of the year, whatever, let me fade into the background. My birthday, I'm gonna be the center of attention. Like, that is my day. I'm not really the type of person that has like a whole birthday week of activities, but at least on the day, I want the day to be special. And my birthday this year was not special. In fact, it was the opposite of special. It was pretty terrible. I didn't really have anything planned because, usually I would plan things with my friends around my birthday so that we could do things together. But this year, obviously, I didn't really have friends to plan things with. So my mom ended up coming down to visit me. And we went to this kind of nice restaurant in town. The food legit was not that good. I mean, actually, I talk about I have a whole short about, unseasoned broccoli on this channel. But the food was kind of meh, but the atmosphere was great at least. But, I had all of this going on in the back of my head, and it's like, well, I just couldn't enjoy my birthday. And, at the end of the dinner, we are driving back to my apartment, and I'm sitting in my mom's car in the passenger seat, and I just start crying because all of this happening will not let me enjoy my own birthday. one of the 3 days that I care about in the entire calendar year has been ruined. And something that broke my heart was that, as I was quietly sobbing in the passenger seat of my mom's car, she's like, did I do something? She thought she had done something to make me feel that way. And that honestly kind of made it worse. So, and another thing that kind of, I think makes that whole experience really bad was that I never got a chance to explain myself. I never got a chance to be like, hey, all of this is like a misunderstanding. I don't secretly hate you or your friends or your family. Like, why would you think that? Like, here's the actual truth. Like, he just dumped on me and then left. I can't even guarantee that he read what I had sent him. I don't even know if my voice was heard. That's what gets me the most about that situation. I was not allowed to have my voice be heard. I was not allowed to articulate myself and make my own feelings known because I guess it just didn't matter. I guess it just didn't matter. I almost swore there. I almost said the F word. That's how mad I am. Okay? It just didn't matter. And so, now that I am removed from the situation, because of that, I think I am better off, but you didn't even give me a chance to. What? Okay. I hope I didn't press a button. You didn't even really give me a chance to, like, explain myself. So it's like, okay, well, oh well. And if he sees this, oh well, I kind of don't care. Again, like, whatever. And, I've moved on past this. Obviously, I'm not gonna just be antagonistic because that I'm so grown. Like, I really don't need to be doing that at my big age, but at the same time, I do need to voice my frustrations because, that event was the catalyst for you seen the meme where it's like there's like this little tiny domino and then it gets bigger. It's like a big, like, I don't know, thing of like sheetrock or something. So like that little tiny domino was tipped over and the big sheetrock was everyone in my family thinking I have something wrong with me on Thanksgiving. So it's like, okay. I don't want to say like this is all his fault because it really isn't, but he certainly didn't help. He certainly did not help, and that wasn't great. And so, there's also been other things going on that have been well, honestly, not really. I was about to lie. No, there haven't been other things going on. Realistically, everything else in my life is going fine. Like, my job is going great. Actually, that's kind of it. That's the only thing that's going great for me is my job. Finally though, I'm at a place professionally anyways where people actually respect me. They respect what I do. They treat me as an equal. So that I am very thankful for. That I am finally taken freaking seriously where, a lot of the times people like me aren't taken seriously. But finally now it feels like I am being taken seriously. So that at the very least I can be happy about. We don't really do this at Thanksgiving, my family, but if we were going to go around and like say, ooh, what are we thankful for this year? I was gonna say my job. I am truly thankful for my job because I think if all of this was going on and I was still at my last job, I probably would be clinically depressed. Like, I probably would be like, need to be monitored because yeah, like if all this was going on and to top it off, I was still at my last boo boo garbage job, like I would probably pack up all my things and like, I don't know, move to the mountains or something just cuz like this is too much. But thankfully, I am in a more stable place professionally anyways. So like you don't have to worry about me packing up all my things and moving to the mountains. That's a little logistically difficult, by the way, and probably also takes a lot of money, which I don't have. So you won't have to worry about me moving to the mountains. I don't like the altitude. Feels weird. Anyways, yeah. And yet, for some reason, I got back. What's today? Today's Sunday. Last Sunday, I was, let's see, we had started flying back. We had to fly for like 2 consecutive days just to get back from Hawaii. By the way, I if you love flying, then honestly, bestie, go to Hawaii. You will have a great time on these airplanes. But if you have like a delicate vestibular system, like I do, maybe don't. Like that's a lot, man. I don't know, cuz like my mom was looking at me like I was weird when we were going through turbulence and I was having like a bad time. And I was like, "Do you not feel the plane dropping out of the sky? Like, hello?" Anyways, we encountered some turbulence on our way there. It was a little bit stressful. And another thing that I guess kind of found out is that I don't know. I legitimately, I guess, since I'm being vulnerable on the pod today, I legitimately started crying as soon as we left from Long Beach to get to Honolulu because I looked out of the window once we were at cruising altitude and it was nothing but water. And I started legitimately panicking. I guess I have a little bit of mild flight anxiety or something, but I just closed the window and like took some deep breaths and then I was fine. Um, so yeah, I would love to go back to Hawaii one day when I am like normal in the head. Probably not for a while because that flight is just brutal. It's so much flying. Oh Lord. Keep in mind, I couldn't fly out of Jackson because again, this airport sucks. I had to go to Birmingham, fly out of Birmingham. So we're basically going not only across the contiguous United States, but across like half of the Pacific Ocean to get to Hawaii, which by the way is just like in the middle of nowhere. Basically in the middle of nowhere. How did people find this island just like on boats? I don't know, but basically in the middle of nowhere. Like if you look at a globe and you look at Hawaii, you will see it is literally in the middle of nowhere. Came up out the middle of the ocean from some volcanoes. That is what Hawaii is. Which, by the way, stunning, stunning, stunningly beautiful geographic landforms, looking at mountains and stuff. So great. I love looking at just nature. It was great. Everything else, not so great, but there was a point where we went around not the entire island of Oahu, but like half of the island. Down from Honolulu where we were staying, which is like on the south, up to the around into like the North Shore and then like back down. That was great. Everything else, not so great. But weirdly, I think what ended up kind of snapping me out of this by the end of our vacation was that something had happened back home while we weren't there. It wasn't that bad. Well, okay, I don't want to say it wasn't that bad because materially what had happened was still like terrible, but my nephew's mother had gotten caught in like a drive-by shooting and like she's fine. She's fine. She, obviously got shot, which is like not the best thing to happen, but it didn't hit any like major arteries. It didn't hit any bones. It like went through her hip. And I mean, she's like, I think my mom told me she's like on crutches now, but she's fine. My nephew didn't even see it happen. So like, it could have been worse, but like, if we had to pick out the ending outcome for being the unintended recipient of a bullet from a drive-by shooting, I think it went pretty well, And of course, upon learning that, we were in Hawaii, which I think is like 5 hours away from like Central Time, so like are they ahead or behind? I can't. Time zones always confuse me. Basically, we're 5 hours separated. And obviously, massively geographically separated because we're basically on the other end of the globe. Well, not really that much. It's like a quarter. Not like the entire other side, but I don't know. And so of course, like that was obviously a very upsetting thing to happen. It happened when was it? Saturday? That Saturday? So I guess last Saturday. Was that last Saturday? Yeah, I guess so. Was that last Saturday? I don't know, man. My days are all mixed up. But that happened, and then, I started thinking, like, I suppose it could be worse for me, I suppose I could be in her position, living in a kind of not great area. Well, it's not even that not great of an area. She doesn't live that far from us, and we definitely don't live in the hood. So, like, you know, living in, I'll say, a not great environment, kind of just, trying to survive with like a 4-year old, which is like my personal nightmare scenario. Like, even though it is pretty unlikely, like, I could be her, you know? I could be my nephew's mom. Things could be a lot worse. I'm just like kind of sad and lonely. Like, I could be at risk of being shot at, which, to be fair, I do live in Jackson, Mississippi. So, like, I kind of am at risk of being shot at, but, not like that. Nobody's doing drive-bys on my street, Like, so, like, things could be a lot worse for me, and they aren't. And I think that is kind of what shook me out of my weird fog, because honestly, as soon as we started like to leave, I could feel my mood improving. Like, as soon as we, you know, were leaving, I could feel myself becoming happier, strangely. And like now, aside from like one hiccup that I went through this week, which is like, honestly, in retrospect, not that bad. Um Things could be a lot worse. They aren't that bad. And again, I don't want to discount my own experiences because they still happen. They still made me feel how I felt. And they were still real. But I could have it kind of worse. And yet I don't. So I suppose this is the time where corny people would say you should count your blessings. But I do have a lot to like be thankful for. Number one, I'm alive. That's pretty dope. Just like baseline, like I am on this planet. Like I am not deaf. I can still listen to music. I can, I still have my health. I still have my family. I still have, I don't know, this job that I like a lot. I there are things that I don't have anymore, like my friendship with Joseph, or like Rio because he passed away. But there are a lot of things that I do still have that I should be thankful for. I still have my creativity. That's very important to me. I still have the ability to create. I still have, I have money in my bank account. It's not a lot, but I have enough to buy people Christmas gifts this year, even though I don't know what to get anyone. I kind of need to figure it out soon because it's December 3rd. So I'm kind of running out of time. But I have a roof over my head. I don't have to worry about getting evicted anytime soon. I have both of my hands. I have both of my feet and my legs and my arms and, all my other appendages that are necessary for a decent quality of life. I have a lot of things, not just like material things, but just like there's not really a whole lot that I'm at a loss for. And I feel like, as weird as it sounds, my nephew's mom getting shot kind of made me realize that, which is super messed up. I'm gonna say it on its face right now. That is super messed up. Like, that terrible thing happening to someone made me realize how good I have it. Like that, it's a little weird, but I guess I have that perspective now, and I can take that with me, and I can move on and try to put the pieces back together of my broken self. So, as weird as it is, that was what ended up fixing me. So, yeah. And it is legitimately like really weird that it ended up working out that way, but it did. So, as far as the actual vacation itself, so, like I said, the drive, not the drive. I mean, I had to drive back home and then drive up to Birmingham to go to the airport. So it was a lot of traveling, but now it's finally over. I just, thankfully, I'm just so short, just so tiny. I can just fit into airplane seats and like be fine. So like, that was fine. I ended up riding, I think, what was it? maybe close to or over 20 pages on the script that I'm working on, all on an airplane. So I managed to get some headway on that project. Um, you know, I took some really nice pictures, which you may or may not see in a video on my main channel at some point. I don't know. I haven't decided when or if I'm going to make it or how I'm going to make it, but it'll be there at some point. But, I got to low key flex on my coworkers. Like, oh, you went to your grandma's house for Thanksgiving? I went to the sunny island of Oahu. It was nice and warm, and I looked at a mountain, and I took some pictures of that mountain. And it was great. Um, yeah, it really helps to have a family member that works for the federal government and has to travel a lot, because then you get to go to cool places. That's also something that I have that I should be thankful for. Considering where I came from, there are not a lot of people who can say that they were able to travel to Hawaii for basically no upfront cost. Because I paid for a portion of one of my plane tickets, of which there were three, and I paid for nothing on the island, except for I bought some poke one time, and I paid for that myself, and that was like the only expense that I had in Hawaii. Aside from like getting food in airports, I did not spend hardly any money, which is honestly pretty great. I I ended up saving money by like just not spending it, which is a weird thing to say, but yeah, I ended up having like a decent amount of money at the end of the month. Well, I mean, okay, not like a decent amount. I don't know. I don't know how to put it. Basically, by me not being here and like having like daily expenses, I was able to save money. So, if you are looking to save a little bit of cash, take a vacation and have somebody else pay for it. Cuz that's how I did it. Um, and if it sounds like I am bragging because I went to Hawaii for Thanksgiving, I am. I am bragging. That's legitimately cool. That's like objectively cool. I spent my Thanksgiving dinner not really looking at the sunset because like there's a tree in the way, but there was a sunset, a Hawaiian sunset on my Thanksgiving dinner. Not a lot of people can say that they did that, you know? So that's another thing that I guess I have to be thankful for. So, yeah. I've been talking for a long time. Yeah. This is honestly, I don't really have anything else to say about my vacation because a lot of it was sullied by me being in the worstest of worst moods. I saw a lot of cool things. But aside from that, it was if I had to choose, I would probably go again either with less of my family there or just by myself, which would then require me paying for everything, but at least then I might actually have a good time. So, yeah. um yeah. I'm just kind of reflecting on all of this and how honestly kind of ridiculous all of this has been. All of this has been utterly ridiculous and my freaking battery is dying. So you know what? That is a perfect cue. This has been the 15th episode of the Running My Mouth podcast. I follow me on Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter, you're only getting half the story. What else? That's it. I don't really have anything to end this episode off on, but like I don't know, man. I'm really hoping 2024 will be just a little bit better than this year cuz good lord, have I been put through the ringer. But the only place I can go from here is up. So, I take solace in that. I have to go.